People are sick of sample-based beats. As a matter of fact, I'm seeing a lot of producers themselves who are notorious for making amazing beats with samples, saying that they're sick of the current era's sampling techniques, which is, in their opinion, just flipping previously existing hip-hop hits, creating new hip-hop hits out of them, which is kind of what I did with the Rodeo track that recently went gold as a hit single. So let's not go there. But what is interesting is that very recently I was told sample-based beats lost all of their relevance. Nowadays, people just want trap, synths. Everyone wants synths, rage beats. No one is sampling anymore. And as a matter of fact, only the people who are sampling are dinosaurs. No one wants that 90s era golden age type of beat anymore. People want new sounding stuff. They don't want samples. Back in 2021, I posted this because I was getting so many ridiculous tweets telling me that sample beats were dead, that no one wants sample beats. 51% of all the top albums in 2021, based on research by Tracklib, contained samples. Let's compare this tweet with this tweet, also from 2021. Now, Matthew here says, I know that sampling is gradually going extinct. So there was a perception in 2021. I don't know why 2021 was the year that people thought sample-based beats were dead, but there was a perception during that time that sampling was just not popular anymore, that people didn't want that sound. And now look at this tweet from this year. This guy's sick of sampling. So in a matter of 3 years, that narrative completely flipped. People were lamenting the death of sampling, and now, look, this is a tweet from 2017. We stopped getting classics when producers stopped sampling. I'm just saying. So a lot of people were ready to declare sampling deceased years ago. Let's look at the current top 10 now, just to bring this point home. I don't know why this is. I love all types of beats, but sample-based beats really do feel like the beats that stand the test of time regardless of the era in which they were created. Not to say that beats that aren't sample-based do not also become classics, but this is one practice that has not changed in the hip-hop production space. So let's just look at the top 10, right? Gunna's number 1 right now. I don't know if there are samples on that project. I know there are samples on this project because that was a Barry White sample. The Kendrick record, that was a Barry White interpolation, at least. Post Malone, probably not. We know there are samples on both of these Kendrick albums. We know there are samples on the Travis Scott album. We know there are samples on this Drake album. Samples here. I don't know about Chief Keef. Definitely samples on the 21 Savage album. So that's 7 out of 10 of the current top 10 selling hip-hop albums all contain samples. I said in a previous video, I want to show proof every single time I make some kind of assertion. Hopefully I'm living up to that. And I honestly feel like sampling is just a part of the already existing musical tradition.
The new Elvis movie has a cover of a tune done by Big Mama Thornton called Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog. It is redefined by Doja Cat. It doesn't go away. Right. It just sort of morphs into something else. Ludacris has Lead Belly's Pick a Bale of Cotton in a song called Rosa Parks.
Right. Just folk music in general, a lot of those songs were passed down for generations, over centuries even. People don't even know who created them originally. They always changed a little when they would get passed down. And sampling has been a part of hip hop since its inception. I love this video in which Grandmaster Flash, is running through music that predates hip hop, and that music became hip hop.
Right, this is considered jazz. Fuck that shit. This is hip hop here. You know, so we use pop, rock, jazz, blues, funk, disco, R&B, alternative, Caribbean, wherever that breakdown was. Stay with me.
So in my opinion, hip hop is the historian of musical genres in the sense that we sample, we create dialogue between the generations. That's what we've always done. There's always been a bridge between current rap music and the previous generation, even with flipping old hits. I heard a recent song, I think it's a Megan Thee Stallion song, that samples the Soulja Boy Pretty Boy Swag record. I'm sure G5 Kid is happy as hell right now. That song dropped in 2010. That means a 14-year-old who who was born that year is now learning about that song. If I had a kid in 2010, which could have happened, it didn't, I don't think, but they would be 14 right now. So yes, a lot of mainstream music is sampled today, but a lot of the weirder kind of genre bending, avant-garde sounding stuff is sample based too. JPEG Mafia, heavily sample based. 90 miles per hour. We talked about the Trey Fuego lawsuit. The poor kid got sued for about $1 million, but that beat was sample based. That's why he got sampled, and it was very contemporary sounding. So sampling isn't going away anytime soon, even among the new generations. Matter of fact, they love that shit. Who doesn't? It's amazing. I love it. You love it. I hope you do. Why are you watching this video if you don't? But obviously, sampling can become a problem. For example, the Trey Fuego situation. No one wants to get sued for anything, let alone $1 million. And so that's why it's so dope that people such as Frank Dukes, who was a sample-based producer, became a sample maker. People like him, people like Koop, who created an original composition, sent it to Metro Boomin, and then they created Bad and Bougie out of that. Honestly, I was just trying to make beats that sounded like they were sample-based, not necessarily because I wanted to avoid sample clearance problems, but really just because sampling didn't always allow me all the control I wanted over the composition. So I was like, cool, I love the way a sample sounds, but I want to create something that comes entirely from me because I want more control over the course of this production. Now, I love sampling, but after I learned how to create, at least to a passable extent, original music that sounded sampled, and then created this collective, co-created it with a lot of other talented musicians, then we started creating original samples. Or for example, we worked on a Wiz Khalifa track that would have cost $80,000 for sample clearance. We didn't play the exact sample. It was not a replay. It was not an interpolation. It was a brand new composition that fit the track. Producers now have all of these options. It's going to be so interesting 10 years from now, 20 years from now, to see how these original samples that sound like old school samples are viewed and maybe resampled. But one sample creator whose samples I use all the time is KXVI. I used to call him KXVI. It's pronounced Kavi. And if you listen to my beats, you've definitely heard his stuff. He's been Grammy nominated. He creates 100% original samples, and some of them he gives away, some of them he sells. I'm going to show you a pack that he just made that's super dope. Matter of fact, let's make a beat. I've got all these samples. I mean, he released this massive sample pack. This is just one of the many packs that are in the mega pack. And these are all samples. Some of them are drum breaks. The other packs are drum breaks, vocals, vocal chops, all kinds of stuff, MIDI. And there's even a course that teaches you how to make samples from scratch. So there's a lot of value in this pack. I'm just going to grab, what am I at? 29 beats per minute. Let's keep it simple. Okay, Through the Storm. Let's pull that in here. Let's see how this sounds. I have some drums already made. All right, this kind of thing feels like cheating. I'm gonna repeat this first part. This is gonna be a hook. Here's a beat with hook. Easy way to make a beat with a hook. Okay, and then the sample breaks down here. It's a full composition. You can see all the stems are included. So I'm gonna take one of the more subdued parts and create an intro with that. Yeah, let's just take this naked piano track, add that to the intro. Let's see how this sounds. Let's chop this up a little. All right, it needs a bass line, so I gave it a bass line. So the name of that mega pack is Elements of Soul by Sonics. It's created by Grammy-nominated vocalist and instrumentalist. 600 plus live instrument phrases, drum breaks, MIDI, all that stuff. Like I said, you can get it half off. The link is in the description. I'm going to pin a comment with it as well. These are 100% original samples. They do sound like old school soul samples, but they are original, so you don't have to deal with sample clearance or any sort of copyright problems. Let's get into the fuckery about current songs sampling recent hit songs. We talked about the Soulja Boy thing. That's 14 years ago. I think a lot of us, at least in my generation, we feel like 14 years ago actually wasn't that long ago, but it It kind of is. 14 years is a long time. But is that lazy? Is it lazy to use a sample from a recent era? I know when I first started digging for samples, this was, the late 90s, early 2000s, and I was looking for 70s era stuff. I wouldn't even touch the 80s for a long time, just because I personally didn't like the sound, but there was also kind of this attitude among rare soul crate diggers that you didn't want to sample stuff that was too recent. I was kind of afraid of some of the 80s stuff, but there's a lot of dope soul and jazz from the 80s and progressive rock as well. But is it wrong to sample from just a decade before you? Let's take the Soulja Boy track, for example, because I feel like a lot of people are upset about that, and they're putting that all on the female rappers. And a lot of rappers who are women are flipping old hit songs. They're not the only ones, but I think it's probably just because they're the ones making the party music, the club music. Well, male artists tend to make less of that, right? At least right now. Things always change. Now, I wasn't alive when this happened, but both of the first recorded rap songs are controversial because Sugar Hill Gang was a manufactured group. A lot of people said, they weren't real MCs. And then there was the Fatback Band that released King Tim 3, and people said the same thing about the rapper on that track, that was just kind of a novelty, that people in the culture really didn't respect that. Sugar Hill Gang Rapper's Delight was the first commercially successful rap single, and that dropped 1980. I thought it was 1979, but let's say it's 1980. It sampled Chic Good Times, which dropped in 1979. So that was just a year apart. Within the same year, likely, that song was created. All right, that's contentious, but here are some songs that aren't contentious. All right, James Brown, Funky Drummer dropped in 1970. Rest in peace, Clyde Stubblefield. One of the earliest rap songs that sampled Funky Drummer was this track. This is from 86. So that's just 16 years after this dropped. Very close to that 14 years between Soulja Boy, Pretty Boy Swag, which dropped in 2010, and Glorilla and Megan Thee Stallion's Wannabe, which samples Pretty Boy Swag. So I know we like to set a lot of rules for ourselves, and I think that's one of the appealing things about hip hop, is that there is positive gatekeeping for the sake of preserving the culture. I kind of feel like the gatekeeping stopped for the things that matter, and the gatekeeping continued for the things that really don't necessarily matter that much. That's for another episode. I think we've talked about this on the podcast. I've definitely spoken on it. I remember my man King Crooked posted on Instagram what's definitely not hip hop, and this had to do with the whole Drake thing when people were saying Drake's not real hip hop. I said being a because there are rich white rappers who say the N-word with the hard R in their music, and I feel like that should have been gatekept. I'm standing on this. I'm not ashamed to say that. I just know that the YouTube algorithm doesn't like when I talk about the R word. Let me know in the comments, do you think that we should chill a little bit and get a little bit more relaxed on what can be sampled? I know another issue with rap songs being sampled is that we're sampling rap to make rap rather than sampling soul or rock or funk to make rap. Maybe that's a concern. Intra-genre sampling, is that an issue? If you have an issue with it, I'm curious to hear about it, because this is an ongoing conversation. This is one of the first times we've seen this happen. We've seen it happen a little bit, like Audio 2's track produced by Daddy-O got sampled like crazy. Top Billin' got sampled in so many tracks. Most recently by 50 Cent for I Get Money. They were using portions, small pieces of that. Nowadays, it's kind of like we're sampling hip-hop beats to make new hip-hop beats. So is that a problem? Appreciate your opinions. I flipped Genuine Pony into Rodeo, and that was a hit. So I'm guilty of the same thing that a lot of people are upset about today. I'm not losing sleep over it. Should I lose sleep over it? Am I a terrible person for doing that? I mean, it's not like we didn't have to get it cleared by Timbaland. He could have said no. Genuine could have said no, they didn't. So shout out to them. But let me know what you think. I appreciate you watching. Let's keep these dialogues going. I find these interesting as long as they're respectful. Much success to all of you. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.